Promare is a complete and utter visual assault of color akin to sucking on a lollipop sold to you by Thumper at Burning Daisy Cella. It's the most anime to ever anime, and that's not a bad thing. The scene work is beyond flawless. It's an incredible piece of art that feels like Kill la Kill and Mob Psycho had a baby, and that baby breathed pink fire while the rest of the world watched from its blue palette eyes. Animated by the prolific Studio Trigger, the film is one of those pieces of art where it's obvious a bunch of weirdos were set free to do literally whatever they wanted, akin to Kojima and Death Stranding. While I myself slept on the cinema release, I wish I hadn't. It is a visually stunning film bursting with over-the-top masculine flexing and a fistful of "this could only come from Japan." It's also on its way to the States now for your home viewing pleasure. Also, let me be perfectly clear with you, this movie, while excellent, is supremely stupid, and that's okay. In fact, there's no way that wasn't on purpose. Everything doesn't need to be Evangelion, and that's a good thing because that show makes me depressed. Some people just want to see giant mechs fighting each other because giant fighting mechs are awesome. And nobody knows that better than director Hiroyuki Imaishi and writer Kazuki Makishima, who not only made this film, but Kill la Kill and the infamous Gurren Lagann. Promare is one of those films that had my eyes shaking in their sockets while my brain slowly numbed over as I kept saying, "What?" It's a perfect example of what anime lovers love about anime and why the haters hate. So let's get into it. Before we jump into everything, I just want to take a quick minute to thank our patrons. Right now, we are basically making videos for free thanks to the economy going on a bender. The support has just been unbelievable from you all during these troubled times, and I cannot stress how thankful Tyler and I are for your support. You guys are the lifeblood of this passion project, and you're keeping us afloat during a crisis so we can continue to make videos. Seriously, thank you guys so much. We're currently revamping tiers, goals, and extra content for you and new supporters who sign up. Now let's talk about Promare. The film opens with catastrophe. People all over the world begin to spontaneously combust, exploding into stylized pink flames like they ate too many Frito burritos and went on a 3-week-long first date. Half the world's population dies in this event, and I like this. It's a very cool way to start out a film. But fast forward 30 years to today, and the world sees a new evolution in humanity who become dubbed the Burnish. These people can control fire with their minds or something, I don't know, it's not really explained that well, but it's inferred that the Burnish wreak havoc amongst the cities, burning everything they can, which explains why the fire department looks like they're the A-team. Galo Thymos is a new and brash member of said A-team, shirtlessly fighting the Burnish flames. This guy is your ultimate shonen protagonist, catchphrase and all. A man being a man, doing manly things the manly way. The entire first scene is a massive spectacle. The macho-ass fire team flies into a burning building to save the people trapped inside with action shots reminiscent of Kill Bill and a Sentai flair. It's cheeky, bombastic, over the top, and is kind of an awesome way to glue you to the film. If this is how it starts, how the heck is it going to end? The burning rescue team fight off the fires and the Burnish terrorist group aptly titled the Mad Burnish who caused it, climaxing with an insane mech battle between Galo and the Mad Burnish's leader, Lio Fotia. The entire scene from the fires beginning to Leo's capture is about 15 minutes of Studio Trigger showing off the best animation they could do. Camera rotations mixed with bright, vibrant colors that encapsulate overly exaggerated explosions of ice, fire, and lights across every scene that are cut up by posed title shots for each character. Also, apparently in this world you can freeze fire, I don't know, it's a thing that kind of eventually makes sense. It was at this point where I realized I didn't really care what this movie was about. I just wanted to see more of this crap, which is good, because that's mostly what I got. I'm not a big music for the music kind of guy, if you know what I mean. I listen for the lyrics. The meaning of things is what draws me in. If you've watched this channel before, that should be really obvious by now, but Promare managed to sidestep my own personal artistic preferences with its bombastic pop art explosion. Anyway, it's only when the terrorist leader Lio is finally captured and dialogue resumes that you realize you're still watching a story playing out. Now, earlier I said this movie is dumb, and I still stand by that, but again, it's not dumb in a bad way, it's just very ham-fisted. However, that's kind of the point. Promare is obviously a visual spectacle first and a story second, so the story leads to the spectacle and serves only that purpose. The spectacle comes from conflict, so the story sets up as many conflicts as possible to enable Trigger to do their thing, which is melt your face off with color, movement, and art. So here's what we got. Basically, the Burnish are more or less normal people with the ability to control fire, but they're treated like criminals just for being born the way they are. They're seen as innately dangerous thanks to the cataclysm from the past and the terrorists fighting for Burnish equality. While this is shown more later, the scene at the pizza parlor sets it up. The Freeze Force, headed by the ironically named Vulcan Heistus, and that's a Latin joke for you nerds out there, storms a pizza place the burning rescue team is eating at in order to arrest one of the pizza makers for being a Burnish. Pizza guy hadn't done anything wrong, he wasn't hurting anyone, he merely made a pizza. Didn't have pineapple on it though, so I don't feel too bad for him, but he's forcefully taken into custody, and when the owner attempts to plead his employee's innocence, the Freeze Force arrests him as well for hiding a Burnish. Suddenly, this free-for-all of color clashes is mirroring the Holocaust, and once the pizza guy is arrested, the other customers start insulting the pizza, disgusted by it just because it was touched by a Burnish. Like I said, it's ham-fisted. The Burnish aren't considered human, they aren't given rights, and if you sympathize with them, you're just as guilty as they are. It's obvious to even a child that this isn't right. Hero guy Galo doesn't agree with the treatment of the Burnish and actively argues against the people hating on the pizza guy. Conflict achieved. As a firefighter, Galo works for the government, which is run by his personal hero, Governor Cray Forsyth, a man who saved Galo from a fire when he was a boy. The Freeze Force are the government stormtroopers headed by Vulcan, who looks like this, and that's what I mean by ham-fisted. You got a guy who looks and acts like this on the good side, you know something is up, obviously. A side note, there's also a romantic subplot between Galo and another firefighter named... one sec, let me look it up. Anna Ardebet. Her character bio is a member of Burning Rescue. She appears to have feelings for Galo and is often by his side. God, this is a main character and a very accurate description of her entire existence. Anyway, the movie is PG-13, so no anime tiggles for you. Nah, because this is all about guys being dudes and robots, son. So right when it's about to get icky with a kiss, Galo drops Aina on her face when he notices a light streak across the sky and crash into the ground. Turns out, it's the Mad Burnish leader, Lio, who's just made his prison escape with some fellow captives. Galo finds them but is immobilized and taken prisoner, and while held by them in their hideout, he questions the fact that the Burnish are having a meal. Despite it only being 30 years since the Burnish came to be, the general populace doesn't even know that they're human. And it's at this point that the Holocaust symbolism is brought back in, and conflict number 2 is achieved. During his captivity, Lio tells Galo that his hero and mentor, Governor Cray Forsyth, is actually rounding up the Burnish and experimenting on them. Galo doesn't want to believe it, but Lio leaves him unharmed with a lot to think about. Galo brings these allegations to Forsyth only to have his worst fears realized that the governor is not only experimenting on the Burnish, but is actively using them as human fuel for his plan to, quote, save humanity. Now, I kind of rolled my eyes at this point because not only has this been done before, and it's obviously an allegory for the Holocaust, but it's also more or less the entire plot of Full Metal Alchemist, who really did it perfectly. And just so you know, if you haven't seen Promare yet, I promise I haven't ruined anything for you, but I am going to mark spoiler territory here. So according to Governor Cray, thanks to the Burnish, the world's magma levels are rising to catastrophic pressures and will soon erupt. Naturally, he doesn't want to be around for this, so he found a planet exactly like Earth a couple of light years away and has built a ship to take a select 10,000 people to this new planet. However, this ship is run by sucking the life out of the Burnish, so there's some glaring humanitarian issues with his plan. Meanwhile, Leo's group is found by the Freeze Force and he gets catapulted into a freaking volcano and turns into a giant dragon and attacks the city of Promopolis. I think that's how you pronounce it. At this point, I actually felt myself becoming more stupid. I wasn't so much confused about the plot as I was about how long was left of the movie. I couldn't imagine where this narrative was trying to take me. And then the entire film devolves into madness and I loved it. You see, when something is derivative or maybe even a little boring, the best thing to do is catch people off guard just as they're about to lose attention. And Promare executed this perfectly. As a huge fan of absurdity, I was not only excited by this, but it told me a lot about what Studio Trigger was trying to accomplish with their film. Galo fights with Lio to save Promplice. It's this crazy battle with big pink fire dragon and mechs. Things are exploding. Leo's all angry and going crazy, but it ends with them being thrown into a frozen lake by Aina. And because Lio is so hot, the lake melts, and it happens to be a secret underground lab for an artificial intelligence made from the consciousness of the scientists who designed the freezing weaponry and the burnish-fueled warp drive powering the Get the Frick Off the Earth ship. Because why not? Then Promare goes on a brainbender so ridiculous that even Galo doesn't bother to follow it, and I legitimately feel like in this scene, Galo is representing exactly how Trigger felt about the narrative of their film. Who cares? All he wants to do is fight and save the day, and honestly, that's all I wanted to see. But I gotta admit, the curveball in the plot is pretty amazing. So here we go. Dead AI scientist proceeds to explain that the Burnish aren't controlling flames. In fact, they aren't flames at all. They are fire-like beings from a parallel universe. These living flames called Promare are a hive mind life form combined into a sentient star powered through nuclear fusion, intelligent with an electromagnetic consciousness. The flames the Burnish wield are Promare and just fractions of energy which seeped through a space-time rupture which happened 30 years prior, resulting in the cataclysm where people spontaneously combusted. This rift in space-time connected Earth's core to the parallel universe and the Promare, enabling humans who can resonate with the wavelengths of the Promare to use their energy, resulting in the Burnish. Those who are super adept like Lio feel the need to burn stronger because that's how the Promare sustain themselves with the nuclear fusion. However, the Promare inside the Burnish are still attached to the hive mind in the core of the planet, which is attached to the star in the parallel universe and can feel the Burnish's pain. And seeing as Governor Cray is going to annihilate millions of Burnish for the warp drive, this massive instantaneous flux of pain will send the Earth's core spiraling out of control and destroy the planet. Conflict 3 achieved. The last 37 minutes of the movie is complete insanity as Galo and Lio team up in a new Promare-powered mech, literally called Deus Ex Machina, to take on Cray and his getaway ship. However, Cray ain't having none of that, and it turns out the bridge of his ship is also, in fact, a mech. A ridiculous battle ensues for the fate of the Burnish and the fate of the world, but it turns out that Cray is a Burnish himself, the most powerful Burnish. He defeats Lio and Galo and begins to use Lio as the sole fuel for the warp drive. And just as all looks lost, the sciencey member of the burning rescue team reveals the ultimate trump card: a drill. Now, we watched this movie with our patrons, and at this point, I think we all cheered and facepalmed at the same time. The amount of masturbatory, self-referential ridiculousness in this movie was moving, to say the least, but it just gets even more insane from there. Using the drill, Galo frees Lio, who is dying, but gives him some very intimate CPR and brings him back to life. The two of them jump into the fuel pod together in sync with the Burnish in the core of the planet, and using Leo's desire to burn and Galo's desire to protect people from said burning, they turn the flames into a friendly fire as they transform the fuel pod to become Galo de Leon, a giant mech that's bigger than the entire planet. And then they punch the planet, which sends the whole thing on fire. And the fire turns into a fire dragon, which jumps into the sun and erupts, igniting the entire solar system, opening a rift in space-time. With the Promare's desire to burn free satiated, they disappear back home into the space-time rift, along with any trace of the Burnish's power. And that's it. It should be obvious by now that Promare isn't going to be winning any Oscars, if you know what I'm saying, but I think that as a film, it stands on its own 2 feet, in albeit an awkward stance. The story was exactly what it needed to be for Trigger to do what it does best, which is entertain and animate. There's certainly aspects of the movie that could be picked apart and delved into. We could talk more about the Holocaust imagery and inequality, political corruption, but that's not really the point of this video, and that's not really the point of the film either. I think the only reason that stuff was in there in the first place was to give a basis for these ridiculous fights and amazing animation that encapsulates Promare. It's important to remember that not everything has a message or necessarily needs one for that matter. Sometimes creators just want to create and to do what they do best for their personal audience and not a mass market. And to me, that's the most substantial part of Promare. It's mech, it's shonen, It's stupid, it's gorgeous, and it knows it. And when creation becomes a business, creativity becomes limited. You have to make things to sell them, and to make a profit, you have to sell to the widest possible audience, which means you have to appeal to the widest possible audience. Personally, I don't think Promare does that. Kids will love it, no doubt, but for those of us who are older, it really only appeals to the type of viewer who truly enjoys obscenely over-the-top action anime. And that's me. Crank it to 11 and watch it go. Throw a couch on the fire, watch it burn. I love that stuff. It was clearly a passion project, created just as much for the people working on it as its intended audience. And for that, I think Promare deserves a lot of respect. But then again, maybe I missed something. You tell me in the comments below. Hey, look at you making it to an end of a video. Thank you so much for watching the entirety of what we made this week. That's awesome. I appreciate it very much. I'm sorry we didn't put out a video last week. We decided to spend that week with our patrons because right now they are literally keeping us afloat. There is no money to be made on YouTube. It was good. We had a lot of watch parties. We hung out. It was a lot of fun. I've also been streaming regularly on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/Bonsai Pop. So if you want to check out what's going on over there, I recommend you go follow us. I'm currently in the middle of a Resident Evil 3 playthrough, which has been a lot of fun. I love Resident Evil. Either way, it's about that time to thank our lucky patron of the week. And this week, our very special patron is Chimera Song. Thank you so much for being an awesome Bonsai Pop patron. And of course, we have to shout out our Super Saiyan God of the week. And we got a couple more that came in out of the blue. So first is Yamcha Kapoor. Who would have known that Yamcha would have been a Bonsai Pop fan, but here we are. Is the way it is. Yamcha, thank you so much for your very generous contribution to the channel. We appreciate you, because we told you. As always, make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That's bonsai_pop on both of those. Again, check out our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Bonsai Pop. Make sure to watch more of our videos. I know you got nothing better to do. And until I see you next week, take it easy, stay safe, stay healthy, stay chill. I'm Mike, this is Bonsai Pop, and I'll see you next time.